Hi, friends. Welcome to Take Courage. I'm Diana Neal, as most of you know, and I'm super excited. I'm on tonight with Justin Stumvoll. So get ready for an amazing night. Hi, Justin. Thank you so much for being on.
Hello, Diane. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone who's tuning in to listen. I love that I get the opportunity to participate in your journeys in your lives tonight. So,
yeah, thank you. So we'll just wait a few before we dive in. So as you get on, go ahead and let us know that you're on. Many times you have to give StreamYard permission if this is one of your first times on, so that we can see your name and also see your comments. So whether you're streaming from the Take Courage community group or the public page or my personal page, go ahead and just give StreamYard permission if you would like to make comments. And we're going to go ahead through this journey with Justin on healing. And then towards the end, I'm going to open it up as usual with a live question and answer. So it's going to be a super powerful night. Now you can share if you're on the Take Courage public page, you can share from there if you would like to. We just opened that up. Or if we are friends on my personal page, then you can go ahead and share from there. You can't share from the Take Courage private group because it just doesn't let you. So thank you so much for being on. As you get on, go ahead and let us know that you're on. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Carol. Hi, Dana. Awesome. I'm so happy that you made it.
Hello, Dana.
I know Dana had a previous thing to do, but she was like, I'm leaving early so I can be on this. So
Oh, I feel so honored that you'd give your time to me.
that's awesome. Thanks, Dana. Hi, everyone. I see someone else that said hi, but like I said, you'll have to give StreamYard permission. So we are going to go ahead and get started in a minute. Just let us know that you're on. And you can go ahead now if you'd like, and you can share this from my personal page or Take Courage public page if you'd like to. So,
also, can I just give disclosure here before we start?
Yes.
I have an old chair that was from the 1960s that we redid in the restoration process of all of our stuff, but it has a squeak in it, so it sounds sometimes like I'm farting. So I'm not. Just a heads up. Your speaker is not farting on air.
That would be horrible if you had that.
Now that we've clarified that, I've had clients who are like, sometimes it sounds like you're farting on the other end. You need to and every time I get some WD-40 for this baby, it ends up wearing out. And I'm like, I'm in one of these situations again.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. That would make it more interesting, maybe. If you're tuning on now with Justin, or I'm on with Justin Stumvoll, most of you know who he is. Hi, Kristen. Great. I'm so glad you made it. Now, I believe Kristen is actually in one of your, she's doing something with you. It could be the Compassion Project. So she's a good friend.
Hello, Kristen.
So hi, Kristen. Hi, Lisa. So just one more time, I'll let you know if you want to share this, you can from my personal page or the Take Courage public page. So that's kind of a new thing we're doing, Justin, because the Take Courage community, like the actual group, it's been more of a private group because we're going after a lot of like intimate, more emotional type subjects and whatnot. And so I've wanted people to really feel that safety. And ability to be like transparent and whatnot. Okay. So I haven't always shared. So I like to let everybody know when they're going to ask questions and so forth that it is going to be public this time. Yeah. So thank you again for being on. If you don't know Justin and his wife, Abby, this is Justin. Abby's not on with us tonight. I would love to have her on sometime with you. She's amazing. And Justin and Abby, like if you are in the Take Courage group, you've been seeing me post a ton. They have a podcast that's going to go on in a minute that's called the Connected Life podcast. And that is absolutely incredible. I was just sharing with Justin before we went on. Chris and I have just been married a little over a year. And they have so many amazing things on there on marriage, on emotional healing. I know Abby and you did some things on like the mother series in a way, and then the father series, and just what I love about Justin and Abby is like they are one of the most real and just honest and just loving, transparent people. And you guys have really challenged me in that way as well, Justin. So I want to thank you for that, because Take Courage is new to me, like just almost a year we're coming up on. And leading and being transparent at the same time, it's a challenge, but it's a beautiful process. And so you guys modeled that really well for me in times where I thought, like, is this too much? And then I'm like, no, this is good. This is where people are really feeling connected to me. So I want to thank you both for that, because it's been an awesome model for me.
That makes me want to cry. Thank you. That's a very kind compliment.
Oh, you're welcome. And also, Justin and Abby have something called the Compassion Project, and that's their big thing right now that they're launching. And so I put a website on the page, and also that will come up as well. And you'll be able to click on that and be a part of that. Justin's the author of The Tree of Life, which is an amazing book. We bought that, I think, a couple of years ago. But he also is doing like the audio version, and that's coming out soon. Yeah. So they have so many things. The Father series, I put that on the page. So all their websites and everything are on, but Krish is behind the scenes, and he'll be putting in all those websites too. So Justin, we're super honored to have you on, and I want you to start talking, but before we do, let me just tell you that this month, so kind of what we've been doing in Take Courage is each month we have a topic. And this month I was going after healing, and I was really focused on like supernatural healing, but when it comes to physical healing, and I really just felt the Lord like say, no, I want you to go after emotional healing too. And it's an area I'm really passionate about, and I've had to walk through a lot. And for me, it's like going to be a lifelong journey, and I love that. And so I just really felt led to reach out to you, because your story, Abby's story, it's touched me, and I just really felt led. And so I'm super honored. I know there's a lot of people on here that have said like, yeah, I want that, and I'm a little afraid of it. But I want to dive deeper into this. So I think it's going to be awesome. And do you still do life consulting as well? Like coaching and whatnot?
I've actually transitioned out of that in this season, and we've raised up probably 14 or 15 consultants to do what we're doing, that we match people up with now and refer people to, because of all the work that we're doing in the other platforms, as well as it's been a difficult season with Abby being really sick, and she's coming out of sickness. And so there's been a lot of that inside of it that I've been managing. So I have a handful of people that I still meet with who are part of my program, but no, I'm not any longer. Awesome. But we do have referrals.
Yeah. So you have referrals. So would that be through Justin Stumvoll Consulting? That they would get referrals?
Yeah, they could go to lfa@stumvollconsulting.com, and we refer to them to one of our associates. They aren't employees of ours. They're associates with their own business, but we have been directly involved heavily in their lives for quite some time. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Do you want to add anything to what I shared about projects going on? If you want to expound, feel free.
Not too much. That I will say, I mean, because you asked about the Compassion Project. The
Yeah.
Compassion Project was something that we created. It's got 13 plus hours of content. And what it's meant to do is actually restore us to this place of childlike wonder through the healing process of connecting to compassion, connecting to the child within, and beginning to break the harsh judgments that we have against ourselves. And so it's meant to introduce us to vulnerability, and meant to introduce us to the kindness of God towards ourselves. So that's kind of a generalization of it. It's been something that was a beautiful thing that getting to create. It was beautiful. You'll even see if you do get involved in it. While I was going through it, I had a kind of an emotional break one day where I just went, I was a mess, and we were in the middle of setting things up, and I hit the record button because I didn't know, because it wasn't fully set up, but I had some stuff, and I just hit record. I'm like, I'm going to let myself be present with my pain, present with my process. And you actually watch Abby sit next to me, walking through me, passion and crying in one of the episodes inside of it. And that was risky to go ahead and do that, because I'm literally letting people view me in the process, not hiding behind like, oh, I'm all good now, let me tell you about the story. I'm in the story, I'm in it. And that's one of the things that we have a high value for. As a side note, is that you talked about risking basically doing this and being authentic and real and stuff like that. And the truth is, no true healing happens outside of vulnerability and risk. It's we want change, but we don't want to have to face our fear in order to do so. But that's part of the process, is we have to decide that fear is a lesser God than love, and that it's not a good friend. It's a terrible friend. And we have to realize that all it wants for us is limitation and lack. And once we do that, it's much easier to be brave, because we realize the real monster isn't the pain. It isn't the circumstances or situations. The real monster we're facing is the fear that we're engaging, the fear that's trying to accuse us, keep us small, and keep us insignificant.
Wow. Yeah, that's super powerful. Yeah. I know for me, like vulnerability, transparency, it's been a definite journey. Yeah. And, God taught me it, I would say, with a good friend that came into my life. And I felt like, the more I shared, the more I was loved and accepted. Yeah. And it was actually right before I met Krish. And that was a powerful way for God to work through that friend. And then I kept saying that to Krish in the beginning, wow, I feel like the more I share, because he'd be pulling it out, the more I feel loved and accepted. Yeah. And so that was something really beautiful. And then I feel like just God really brought that tribe of friends around me as well, that were going after the same thing at the same time. And that's healing in itself, just having people around you that you can do that journey with.
I want to add this too as a side note, bunny trail, but a lot of people will ask me how, what is the 12-step process to becoming vulnerable, or the 12-step process to changing your life, getting the right people in your life and getting the new friends. And what if you don't have it? And there's all these questions, because there's a lot of fear. There's the fear of abandonment, the belief that there's not a good dad that's bigger than us, that's involved in our world. And so one of the things I say to them, it's not about the how, it's about the who, right? But it's about the who being a good dad who wants to be involved. And it's about us saying just simply yes. There's something about a yes to a process, because there's a scripture that talks about he stands at the door knocking, waiting for us to open. And there's this idea that love is based in the idea of free will. And there's this idea where Jesus said, not my will, but yours be done. It wasn't a robotic statement, like, I am a robot, my name is Jesus, tell me what to do, I am programmed to follow you. It's not that. It's a, hey, Dad, I am giving you permission. I am bending my will in this circumstance. I am inviting you and your kingdom, your purposes, whatever your heart is. I am saying yes right now for you to be actively participating in this moment with me. And so there's something unique, because once we initiate a yes, I don't know how this is going to happen, but yes to facing the fear, yes to being vulnerable, yes to running after dreams, yes to overcoming this hurdle in my heart, yes to wanting a friendship group that can run with me. there's all these magical divine moments that seem magical. It just like start happening. And we're like, how did I get here? Oh yeah, I got here because I said yes. And there's a really good daddy who's really involved in my story and wants my freedom for me more than I want it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Justin, because it also brings me back to like just knowing that we do serve a good father. And like, even we're going to have disappointment, even with our safe, amazing tribe of people. Yeah, there's going to be disappointment in marriage. There's going to be disappointment. But going back to like, okay, what's the risk versus the reward? And when I'm feeling that brokenness and maybe disappointment from my partner or my friend, like I have a good dad to go back to and get perspective and get ultimate comfort and fulfillment from. And that's where I'm going to flourish, even if pain occurs. But like, what is the risk versus the reward? And are we going to take that step out of fear into faith and get that reward? I feel like we could go on this because this is real.
Yeah, I do want to say this too about pain. The lie that we believe as human beings is that if we don't look at pain, it doesn't exist. So we're scared of pain, but the pain is there. We're living in an illusion that it's not already there. And it's creating compounding problems that we're so unaware of until we get healing. Once we get healing for the pain, we realize, oh my gosh, my life was a train wreck in all these areas, all because of the unprocessed pain that was dictating my reactions, my actions, my relationships. It was actually trapping me. It was my personal hell. One of the things that I say to people in my office is I said, hell is real. It's right here on earth. It is the chains and the trappings of your mind and your heart that you are inside of, that you are blind to the reality of. And there is an open door policy on it. You can walk out at any minute, but I have this one saying, fear is the gateway between us and the destiny of who we're created to be. And what I mean by fear is the gateway. It's like, it's this door that's not actually locked. And it's this fear that says, if you face your pain, if you get honest with what's going on inside of you, if you have conversations, you're going to be destroyed. And there's this thing where God's like, hey, if you will just actually walk into this fear, face it, slam into it, you'll realize that door blows wide open. And who we're made to be, that means a child that's connected to love, identity, and truth. A child that's living fully alive is going to emerge on the other side of it. And the best version of ourself begins to bloom and come alive, because on the other side of the fear is the love that produces life. When we connect into the love that's on the other side of fear, there's something that nourishes us and causes us to flourish and come fully alive, like you're talking about.
That's beautiful, Justin. Actually, I'd like to be transparent for a minute. Like, I know even God has like moved through Krish in my life, even in that first year of marriage, and continues to, with calling me out in a loving way on certain things that I'm not being honest about. Like, there were certain parts of healing where I'm like, oh, I've already gone through this. Oh, I already dealt with that. And I really felt in my heart that I did. And I'm like, yeah, I've been through inner healing. I've been through counseling. I've been through this. And he's like, but you haven't really dealt with it. Like, you touched it, but you didn't dive into it. And, of course, like, sometimes I was offended, like, yeah, right. But other times I'm just like, whoa, there's something here. And then the tears and the emotion come. And it's like, and I want to get into this in our interview, like, as well, like later, but there is this part where I know for me, with anything that's come up, whether it's come up through God, or like a lot of times God speaks to me in dreams, and I feel like it's an opportunity for healing. And it's like, okay, I can ignore this, but I feel like there's a greater tension once it's like at the surface, or I can just really dive into this and trust that God's going to carry me through on the other side. And there's pain there and there's fear, but it's also really beautiful. It's too hard to go back once you've seen something.
And I will add this, a lot of times people are scared of in their fear of facing the pain, or maybe they visited it and they're like, I don't need to go there anymore. It's really what they're saying is, I don't want to take care of the child within. So we as kids in our childhood grow up in spaces of neglect. where
Yeah.
we don't feel seen, known, heard, understood, right?
Mhm.
And so every time I say, I don't want to look at that pain, I'm saying, you're not worth it.
Yeah.
And the truth is every invitation to look at something is an invitation to have compassion on the child within, the parts of ourself in our history that always needed mothering and fathering, that was nurturing in its nature.
Mhm.
And so there's this beautiful gift that when we are willing to go to that pain, even if it's like, I've done this a dozen times, going there again shouldn't be a burden. If it is a burden, it's like looking at a child who says, Mom, Dad, can I talk? No, you're stupid. I already talked to you about this before. We've already been here. Why do we have to go back here? This is a waste of my time. It's
Yeah.
abusive in nature. But so really what our heart posture has to become is, I want to become the most nurturing, loving, kind person in my own space to the innocent, childlike part of myself. Because
Mhm.
the truth is when Jesus talks about the idea of becoming like these children, he's talking about returning to our childlike innocence and wonder. It's like returning to this space of this unconditional love before shame and judgment broke in. And the only way that we can do that is if we're able to see ourselves as kids and see the beauty of our innocence, and allow love to heal and repair the innocence that was lost and stolen in the journey
Yeah.
of pain, brokenness, humanity, shame, guilt, all the other stuff that comes with it. And so I think that that's really part of the process of reconnecting to the fullness of love, is allowing the love to wash over us in such a way that that childlike innocence is restored, even in the midst of the messiness of humanity.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love how you brought up shame, because I hear that pop up every once in a while, like when at times where I've thought, or I've spoken out of my mouth to Krish, like, this should have been dealt with a long time ago. Well, that's a shame thought.
Yeah,
Like that shame coming up saying, there's something wrong with you because you should have dealt with this a long time ago and you haven't. And it's like, no, for whatever reason, it's coming up again. And this time, I'm going to go through it, and maybe it's going to come up again, and that's okay too. So I love that you brought up shame. Like I am really passionate about breaking shame, and I have like my process of how I do it. And I love it because shame holds us back. But something I love how you talked about the child, that is something that I saw in your process of healing, as far as I heard it in your process through the podcast, of just connecting to the younger you. That was, so when I first heard you doing that, I thought it was really interesting. I was like taken back by it. And then Chris and we got into this master's in counseling program, and we did some of that work during when we went out to California and did this 4-day program there. It was like our kickoff. That was so absolutely powerful for me, because I got to talk to my younger self, like in a group full of people. There was like 6 of us. And that was like, I've heard you do it, bring compassion and love to yourself. And I'm like, wow, this is a thing. This is a healing technique. And it's used, you can utilize it with God in like the way that you do. Or, like people in counseling use it as well, like psychologists and whatnot.
Yeah.
So super powerful. So while that's a great conversation, I know we can talk forever.
Yeah.
I want to give you some space though, Justin, for people to connect with you, and connect to your story. Not only to honor that part of you and what you've walked through. However, I know the healing that's come up when I've listened to you and Abby speak. And it's triggered me in a good way to go to places. And so I want to open that space and let you just dive in to share kind of your journey wherever you want to go with it, on what brought you to a place of saying, you know what, I want to connect to myself and I want to go through this journey of emotional healing.
Yeah. To give context for my life, I grew up in a Christian household, and that was I accepted Jesus at 5 years old, watching Billy Graham. The unfortunate problem with that, though, is that I had a home that was very verbally, physically, and emotionally abusive in the context of, and we talk really openly about this in all the stuff we do, because there's been a lot of restoration with my parents and my best friends now, but we dialogue about the beginnings of the chaos of it all. And my mom was the verbal, physical, and emotionally abusive one. My dad was very neglectful in his behavior, checked out, disconnected from his body himself. He was working all the time. And so while he was at work, my mom was at home in great pain. And later on, years later, we find out, bigger pieces of mom's story where she had lost children, had men leave her, had men beat her, and all kinds of stuff. But in my childhood, recently, my mom even had the conversation with me. She's like, you know what? I called her because some pain had come up, and I called her up, and I just was crying, and I said, I feel so effed up by my childhood, Mom. These things were so unfair. What happened here in this space? It felt like you made me be your source to solve your pain and your problems. And when I couldn't do it, it resulted in more physical violence and verbal abuse. And my mom says, you're right. You're right, Justin. I used you. I thought you would be the solution. You were my little boy who loved me unconditionally, and all this pain was inside of me. And when you couldn't solve the problem inside of me, I got angry, and I would hate you one moment and love you the next. And that was there was some very vicious things involved. And I'm just saying this to paint the picture, from being grabbed by the hair and thrown across the room to being hit with things over the head till I had lumps on my head, bruises on my arms from pinching, scratches that left blood on me, a lot of stuff like that. And then a dad who had no idea that any of it was happening because he was so far removed from the experience. And when I entered into my father's world, he had his purpose of hunting and fishing and working hard. And so to enter into his world, I existed, but I didn't exist as a real human being. I more existed as a burden. When I wanted to learn or wanted to be taught, it was frustration. And that's where he got intense and aggressive and almost humiliating in his behavior of like, what's wrong with you? Just listen to me. Why can't you just do what I say? Why can't you get this? And I'm a little kid who doesn't understand half the language that he's saying. I would go on job sites, electrical sites, because he was an electrician, and he would use this language that made no sense. He was a master electrician, and he would further be disappointed with me and frustrated with me. And so the message that was communicated in that space is that the world would be better off if I did not exist. Yeah. If I was dead, it would all be good. And I also had an element between the ages of 7 to 9 where I didn't put these pieces together on this, but at that same age, I had an older male cousin who bullied me badly. I mean, like tried drowning me in a pool, would choke me out all the time, hated me for random reasons. I'm just a little kid. He was a couple of years older. Now that plays a role in what I'm about to say. Yeah. In that same season, me and another boy my age started engaging in a sexual relationship back and forth from 7 to 9 on and off, where we'd perform sexual acts on each other. It wasn't until later years, within the last 2 years, that I put together, the brokenness that was happening with my cousin abusing me laid way for me, especially with a home that had no nurture inside of it, to go, okay, I'll engage in anything that feels good or feels like accepting. And so what I had, now, just these little pieces put together this idea of deep shame and self-hatred. And again, not only with my parents, but also my grandparents had no nurturing nature. My grandparents made statements like when my grandma would ask me, how are you, Justin? How was your day? This was when I was young and would see her and was in a lot of pain. I'd say it was really tough. Kids were beating up on me at school. She would look at me and say, oh, poor Justin. He has such a tough life. Oh, look at me. I'm Justin. I have a tough life. Well, you know what, Justin? Kids in Africa have it worse, so you need to get over it. Wow. And that wasn't a singular event. That was a consistent cycle of conversation. So one thing that I learned in my childhood is I'm not safe with authority figures. My pain does not matter. I am a burden. I take from people. I am the source of their pain. There must be something really evil about me if someone will be violent against me. So there must be something inherently bad about me. And then I have this sexual interaction that has this deep shame that happen where I go, this disqualifies me from love. I am living in secrecy and hiddenness. And so I lived the majority of my childhood up into my early 20s in a level of deep suicidal tendency. It was my medicative state. So I would medicate when all my childhood said, you are powerless. I had learned powerlessness. It was, there is pain that is happening to you. You cannot do anything about it because those who were meant to protect you do not care about you and will not advocate for you. So what happens is that spills into my first college year where I almost go to kill myself. And I have an encounter where before I go to get my gun and kill myself, I say, God, I don't want to die, but I don't want to live like this forever. If you're real, I need you to do something. And at that point, I was just drinking a lot with friends in college and kind of like, I wasn't done with God. I was done with the BS version of God because the church system that I was in was about religion. So because I had earrings, I got yelled at by Christian pastors. Because I had a tattoo, I was talked poorly of. I was a very kind, gentle-hearted kid, but I was judged because of rules and systems. And so finally I was like, I hate all of this. There is no love that seemingly exists in my broken state of being. So I'm going to lean towards, I just want out. So that night I had an encounter with God where this unconditional love met me in that space. And I find myself weeping for the next couple hours in a puddle of tears and spit on the floor on my dorm room floor. And that begins a process of asking the question. And this kind of tees us up to answer a lot of this.
Yeah.
I started saying yes to a process. I'm like, if you're real, I want to know more about you. And over the next year or two, as I do a deep dive into this journey and this relationship with God on my own, I start saying like, God, all of this kind of like truth feels relative because everyone's having a war about truth. There's so many different denominations. I don't know what to believe. Just show me what to believe. And he led me back to John 3:16, for God so loved the world. And he highlights love. And he said, Justin, love is a key. It is a thing that will heal you and will heal the world. This is the invitation that I have for you to discover what it is to love yourself, love your others, love others. Let me love you and you love me. Like this process of relationship. And so that initiates a conversation about love that I cannot get away from. It is the foundation that starts sparking this healing process. Everywhere where love comes in at, it demands that healing starts happening. As I start saying yes to love, the pain starts getting exposed, the festering, the oozing from the wound. All of a sudden, the love starts causing an ache. Not because the love is bad, but it starts getting rid of the numbness. Because when we are living a lifestyle of so much pain, we eventually numb ourselves, and love takes away the numbness. Because when we are numb, numbness to our pain also causes numbness to joy and pleasure and abundant life. So, but what love does is it breathes the breath of life onto every part of our being. And all of a sudden, the numbness starts going away because life is present. And where life is present, it has to acknowledge pain as much as it acknowledges goodness. So all of a sudden, I'm provoked and thrown into this healing process. And what happens is I'm alone and single, starting to do it and having these radical encounters. But the real moment, the real shifting point is at 25. And 25 is when I had that aha, where that phrase, fear is the gateway between us and the destiny of who we're created to be. It blows through my mind. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's this fear. I hate you, fear. I hate you so much. You're making me feel small. And I get this righteous hatred for fear. And I begin to say, I am ready to face all my greatest fears, no matter what it costs me. And so what happens in that process is relationship begins to spring up between me and Abby. This intimacy that demands, requires, requests, calls out, is an invitation into vulnerability, starts happening in the context of relationship. And now as Abby and I are relating together, I can't hide from my pain because I have someone who's so close to me and there's so much
Mhm.
love present that the festering is so aching that I'm like, and I'm having meltdowns because now all of a sudden I can't be numbed out. That can't be hidden. Love is present.
Mhm.
And it turns into a situation where the question is, do we destroy each other? Or do we fall into the arms of love and healing and let the process work itself out inside of us and let it bring us closer together? And so it was either see this marriage destroyed off the bat or see this marriage be the gift that's the invitation into the fullness of liberation that the Father has designed for us.
Mhm. Wow, powerful, Justin. I didn't plan on asking you this, but I'd like to ask, like, so as you are walking through this process now with Abby, how, I know this is probably a big question, but it's like you could have allowed like triggers to come up, right? And trigger one another or create safety and love and dive into each other. How did you navigate through that? Or is that too big?
No, that's not too big. I don't know that I can answer it in its fullness. I'll answer the best I know how. I can
Yeah.
say this. We did trigger at each other to the point where we were destroying each other, to the point where we were cussing and yelling and screaming at each other at times. But there
Mhm.
was this value for love that transcended the brokenness. And I didn't know I was being triggered. I didn't know I didn't know what was happening. I just felt like, I
Mhm.
mean, when I got deeper into my journey, I realized, oh, I have complex PTSD. She
Yeah.
has PTSD from her neglect inside of her childhood. We had no idea. We just knew. I mean, I remember there were days that were so scary as pain was coming up, and times where I felt so out of control that the only way to keep myself from blowing up more was to throw myself on the ground in fetal position and just go, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't have language for this. No one's ever helped me. And there was a cry in my heart consistently, though, that was, Holy Spirit, God, show me, give me the answer. I love this person. I chose this person. I choose this life. I choose this moment. I choose into all of this. Just show me I can't do this on my own. And there
Mhm.
was this beautiful brokenness that resulted in a byproduct of humility. Not
Yeah.
false humility, but it was, I am so shattered inside, Daddy. I cannot do this without you. I remember that there were moments where I would just go on drives and I'd be like, I have to go. I have to go out. And I would drive and I would scream at the top of my lungs and I would pound like my steering wheel with my fist. And I'd be like, I'm so effing angry. What's happening? And I'm
Yeah.
having a meltdown. I'm like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And I'm allowing all of this to happen because
Yeah.
I'm going, I don't want to go back to death. I don't want to go back to suicide. I don't want to go to a broken marriage. I want to succeed. I can't give up and just lay down and die. I'm choosing in. And so
Mhm.
there was the element of the choice when we got married. When we this adds a piece to it. There was a conversation internally, which was, for me spiritually, I was on a quest of going, God, what do you have for me in a helpmate, in somebody that would walk by my side? And oftentimes we over spiritualize that journey because we're scared of making mistakes, choosing wrong, choosing in, and the fallout of it. And it's easier to hide behind you said rather than this was my choice, my powerful decision. And I
Mhm.
remember this inner voice saying, Justin, do you want her?
Mhm.
And I was like, I do. I want to be
Mhm.
with her. Okay, then do it. Do it. Step into it. But from the foundation, when I was saying I do, it was me saying, I am choosing you. Not because
Mhm.
I have to, not because it's expected from anyone else. I want this. I want to fight for this. I'm going to pay a price for this.
Yeah.
And in stepping into that and paying the prices for her, I'll say this too, and I don't know what people's thoughts are, and I'm not shaming anyone who's done anything different, but we didn't have sex before marriage. I had sex prior to marriage and with other people.
Yeah.
And there was a process of healing of sexuality that went on for me. But there was a price that I had to pay for her heart. I didn't just get to
Mhm.
go into this going like, oh, I got what I wanted. I got my needs met sexually, whatever. I'm just here. I guess we'll get married. It
Yeah.
was like I fought for a year in relationship, paying a price to connect and be friends. And so when I walked into it, I had already started paying a high price. And the
Mhm.
higher the price that I paid, the more I was willing to fight through these triggers or these moments and say, I chose her. I want to see the beauty that can be on the other side of it. What is the possibility of redemption for my story? What
Mhm.
and I had this thing that I've always been like, God, write a story with my life,
Mhm.
pen a story with my life. Let me be a partner with you in partnership. Be my friend that pens a story with me that is beyond anything that I could create on my own. And I'll
Mhm.
say yes to the process.
Mhm.
And so there was part of me that even in my worst moments, I'm like, yeah, but there is a story that is being written that will echo out in history, whether it's in earth or in heaven. There is something being written with my life, and I want to see it to its end. I want to see a
Mhm.
beautiful story written.
Wow,
So
that's that.
so
Okay.
that played a huge part in me choosing in from moment to moment to face these things. I don't know if you asked how did we process through. I don't remember.
No, that was great. I mean, because I know that's a subject in itself, and I'd love to. I'm already inviting you back, but I'd love to have you and Abby on and even talk about, like, because that's something I'm passionate about in learning, triggering, and how do you walk through that? How do you create safety? Like all of those amazing topics. So thank you. I want to
Yeah.
just say I appreciate your transparency. I have high value for that, and you just dove in, and I really love that. So thank you for sharing that part of you with this group, because it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to ask you, as you talked about, like there was fear and there was a choice. Like that's what I keep hearing you say. Yeah, you were saying yes, and you were continuing to say yes. Yes to your process, and yes to Abby, and diving and moving towards her. So for people watching right now that are saying, I know there's stuff there, because I mean my belief is there's stuff there for everyone, no
Yeah.
matter what. Our level of pain is our level of pain, and it's real to us. But for the people that are feeling fear, like I even know I'm numb, or I know there's something there and I don't know how to do it. Can you share how to face that fear? Like, I know it's different for everyone, but just maybe your process of like what you would advise or give wisdom in on that.
Yeah. How do you face that fear? Um, I don't know. I'm going to verbally process. I don't, this is a
Yeah.
conversation more than a Q&A because I don't have the answers. I just have a place to share some of my experiences and dialogue about it.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think when we invite love in,
Mhm.
it naturally produces a facing of fear.
Mhm.
Part of facing the fear is letting go of a relationship with self-sufficiency.
Mm.
So in order for me to really face fear, like fear only exists because we are children that have been orphaned and abandoned in our minds and our hearts. Our belief system says that we've been abandoned and orphaned. So we are all living in worlds of self-sufficiency and disconnected. That's why we're scared of stuff. We're scared we're not going to get our needs met. We're scared we're not going to get taken care of. We're scared everything's going to fall apart and we're going to be devastated. It's because we have that disconnect from our original design, the original intent, which is relationship with unconditional love. And so part of it is acknowledging, I have been choosing to live in self-sufficiency, deciding that
Mm.
that was honorable, brave,
Mhm.
courageous, powerful, whatever we've defined this disconnection as, is like, I can do it on my own. Look at how great I am. I'm awesome. I've got
Yeah.
this. No, you don't. You're lying to yourself. And
Right.
the byproduct of the destruction, the chaos, the loss, the disconnection in your life tells you you don't have it.
Yeah.
You are lying to yourself because
Right.
you are terrified of letting down your walls and connecting to love. But
Mm.
inside of this process, we have to begin the first facing of fear is I'm risking saying yes to letting people in. And
Yeah.
that was the first step that was terrifying. It was that yes to relationship. Like,
Mhm.
how am I going to navigate my fear? I need to figure out how to say yes to relationship. Well, I
Mhm.
do have friends. I'm with people all the time, but do they know you? Do they know your pain in the moment that you have pain? Do they know your victory in the moments of victory? Do they know you? If they don't, if you're not able to share in that, it tells me you're not an actual sustaining, connective relationship that helps us overcome fear. Because when we realize that I am not alone, fear begins to get shattered. The shattering process happens with fear because we go, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. And that was part of my process, even with God, that overcame the fears, when I could say, where are you? Are you a good dad who's involved in my life? And I'd be like, if you are, like, heal me from my blindness to the places where you've been involved. And I would begin to have these aha moments where I'm like, oh, there was the Father. There was a creator. There was love showing up in this relationship, this moment that led me to this, even in the midst of all the chaos. And as these ahas of truth, that I have never been alone. I am not now, nor will I ever be alone. That love has always been part of my story. Even in the darkest of moments, it was there wanting to be with me, heal me, and take care of me. As that truth started rising up in me, I could say, I have the strength to face this fear. Yeah. And that fear, part of the facing the fear process is like, what are the things that I'm wanting to do? What are the things that I'm wanting to say? What are the things I'm wanting to be that I'm veering away from, that I'm feeling trapped in my chest every time I want to move towards it, that I'm slinking back from? And I'm like, oh, that's where it is. It was moments, simple moments, just to give examples. If someone said, do you want to come to this party? I'm like, nah, I don't want to, because I could feel anxiety hit. Oh, that's fear. Why am I scared that I'm not enough? Or what is it that makes me not want to be there? Oh, I feel like I'm rejectable. I feel like I'm going to be thrown out. And there was conversations where I'd be like, God, do you love me? Yes. Do you love me? Even if no one there understands me? Yes. Even if they reject me? Yes. All right, I'm going to go participate in relationship there. Or it's, someone invites me to talk and I could feel fear come up. God, where is this anxiety from? I'm going to say yes to this, and I'm going to let you work something out inside of me as I move towards it. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Justin, and I feel like what I'm hearing is you like it was a huge process of like honesty with yourself, connect to your heart, like connecting to your emotions, and really like, instead of being in that numb state that you were used to, you were truly getting real with yourself, and then coming out of self-sufficiency, doing that with God, and then even taking it a step further and saying, and I'm going to do this with people too, because I have this love relationship with the Father. And so I'm just going to take this risk with others as well.
The other thing that I realized too was like, I came to them and to myself, and I realized there's nothing more that I can really lose. Like, we're always scared of losing everything, but I started asking, like, what am I protecting myself from losing? I already don't feel loved. So I'm so terrified of someone not loving me, but I already don't believe that I'm loved. You can't remove that from me. I already don't feel loved with my parents. So why not confront them? Why not? Confronting them, what's the worst that can happen? Love that I don't feel, that doesn't seem to be there, gets removed.
Right.
Out there in the first place, more can't be taken away. And we start realizing that in our human condition, we're really freaking bankrupt already. Once we just come to terms, honestly, get behind our denial and come to terms with the reality of how bankrupt we are in so many ways. I don't want to paint life as a super dark condition, but there is a bankruptcy in our human condition when we're not connected into unconditional love, and we're trying to fill that void that's so bankrupt with all kinds of things: food, sexuality, working hard, notoriety, performance, whatever it is, but it keeps going right through, in and out, and we keep finding ourselves empty anyway. So I am bankrupt and empty, and if that's it, I have nothing to lose. Let me just run after this and see what happens. So it was either that or die. For me, it was like the gun was the next option.
Right.
I've been to the end of myself. I've been suicidal. I've been wanting to get out of here. If I'm going to be here, I might as well face it. And I think that once everyone starts coming to the end of themselves, dying to ourself isn't dying to our joy in our life and what we love. It's dying to our self-sufficiency. It's dying to our self-hatred. It's dying
Yeah.
to our self-judgment.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yep.
dying to our self-performance. It's dying to these lies that we sell ourselves and going, hey, none of this is fulfilling. None of this is transforming. None of this is freeing. I'm going to die to my ability to give myself life, tap
Mm-hmm.
out, and choose to invite life in and face the fears that keep me small.
Wow, that's so good, Justin. And I feel like too, something that I feel I know about you anyways, and correct me if I'm wrong, like your passion to destroy like religion and being religious and just being real and honest and like having that raw relationship with God. So when you started talking about like, yeah, maybe use food and all these things that go through you, I just like, I know even for myself, for a long time in my past, and I'm sure there might even be people watching, like you can even utilize like Christianity and religion and
Yeah.
being spiritual, and you're not being
Medicate and
real.
hide behind it.
Yeah, medicate and hide behind
We're all good. We're
spirituality.
just Christians. Everything's fine. We're doing our due diligence. And it's like, no, your children are suffering. The whole family's falling apart and you're bullshitting yourself.
Right, absolutely. And that is so, I mean, it happens all the time. And I feel like because people have been taught to like use scripture, but in like this fake way. Like, I mean, I'm all about declarations. I'm all
Absolutely.
about,
Yeah.
thinking, thoughts of God and thinking on things that are pure and lovely and all of the scriptures that we can use. But there's an element of fakeness that
Yeah.
comes through religion and spirit and being spiritual and putting on that face, and it doesn't work. It
Yeah.
just simply does not work, and it's another mask to hide behind.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for pointing that out, Diane. It's such a massive mask that people hide behind. It's true.
Oh,
And
it's crippling.
it's so crippling. And there is, I once had a conversation in my early 20s with a pastor, and we were in some big religious event. I said, this is all golden chains, man. And he's like, what? And I go, well, the people outside doing drugs and stuff, their chains are rusty.
Yeah.
The chains in here are golden. They just look shinier and prettier because everyone's performing and acting like everything's okay. And no one's willing to be honest about how messy they are, how painful it is the minute they walk outside that door, the chaos, the everything else that ensues. Everyone just wants to act like they got it together. And I said, these are golden chains. And when I talk about the problem with religion, I'm not talking about a problem with a relationship with our Creator. I'm talking about hiding behind these rules and regulations to just govern ourselves. And don't get me wrong, I love self-management and making healthy choices. But when it transcends the reality of our humanity and we're using it to actually hide our humanity and act like it doesn't exist, that's where a huge problem comes in.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I know for me, I hid for so long in the church and I could not get free because everybody seemed like they had it together, like my closest friends. So I'm like, I'm screwed up. Like I came from a dysfunctional family and I have all these bondages and all the sin and all these secrets that I'm hiding. And I'm not going to come out with it because everyone else is like perfect. And they came from these perfect Christian homes. And, like they're not dealing with any sexual sin or drugs or alcohol or whatever it might be. The last thing I'm going to do is come out with this and share that with them. Yeah. And that kept me broken. It kept me hidden. And it wasn't until my own process of getting honest with God, so I can relate with you on that, getting honest with myself. But it also was bringing in that I'm fortunate. I mean, I talked about this week, and the group itself was just like, I know that I'm fortunate to have really good, intimate, like transparent friendships where I can be myself. I know not everybody has that, and that it's scary and it can be risky and all of that. But that was a huge element for me too, was to have people that were also going after that journey of vulnerability. And they were saying like, yeah, this is what I'm going through, or, this is what I've been through. And like, just being able to relate in brokenness and relate in wholeness as well.
Yeah.
Like there's something really powerful about that.
Well, and that's why,
So
even on that, like, that's why I talk about, do you have people that you're sharing both your pain with and your victories? Because the
yeah,
wholeness part, there's something vulnerable about sharing our dreams, our vision, our good
yeah,
days, our awesome stuff, to be like, this is what's working, this is what's amazing.
yeah,
Like that's super exposing, and that's super beautiful. That's a key component in relationship, that we're
yeah.
not just talking about terrible, but we're talking about this beautiful balance of the wholeness of our human experience.
Mhm.
It challenges us. It reminds us again that we're not alone, and it reminds us that there are good things inside of our life, and it
Yeah,
reminds us that we have strength when we feel weak, because we're able to love someone else that's equally sharing their mess, and I have something to give.
yeah. Yeah, and when you have that transparency with someone too, they're reminding you of who you are, even in your mess, because
Yeah,
they know you in that intimate way.
yeah,
And so I want to ask you something, because you mentioned something. I thought it was so powerful. Like recently, you reaching out to your mom and saying like why, and and this is what's coming up, and you're thinking this in this moment. You call your mom with us, and she says to you, yeah, you're right. I believe that was her words. Like,
yeah,
she owned it in that moment. And so I want to talk about that for a minute, because, I know that there are a lot of people that say, well, how can I move on?
yeah,
How can I get healing if, like, maybe their parents passed, right? Or maybe they're just not in a place of like taking ownership. Um, and so I guess my question is, to narrow it down, is like, do we have to bring the other person, whoever it might be, right, into that process? And then to piggyback on that, so if I have to ask you again,
yeah.
how do we know like when we should or not, because of the risk of that person not taking ownership?
Yeah. It's a good question. Well, first off, when we're in relationship with self nurture,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's going to springboard us through any mess that's happening. So let me kind of break into that. I'll use my family as an example.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, I had confrontation with my parents as a way for me to have the voice, because Justin had never had a voice. He never had permission to say this was wrong. He never had permission to say that this is how I was affected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to decide that I might burn down my entire relationship with my parents, and it looked like that's what was going to happen in the beginning.
Yeah.
There was some knockdown, drag out, verbal escalations that took place multiple times in that process.
Yeah.
And part of it was, I just won't be silent. I won't be silent any longer. And if we're going to do any level of connection, I need you to know that I won't be silent about what happened. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't fake the connection. Like, to say, there's a lot of people who are like, well, I don't want to break the relationship we have, but I move like 1,000 miles across the nation, so I don't have to be around my parents except once every year. Well, you already don't have a relationship, and you're lying about the relationship you have. So you might as well throw the grenade in it and be like, I'm going to talk about this.
Yep.
At least I'm going to be honest, and you might not like it, and you might not respond well, and we might not be any better off than we are, but we can't get any worse off because I'm lying about what doesn't exist anyways.
Yep.
So first off, there was that element of like, I'm going to do this for my ability to have a voice. Number two, I'm going to be okay with the repercussions of the pain that they feel,
Mm-hmm.
because one of our fears is, but what if I cause them pain? The
Mm-hmm.
consequences of sin is death. What it's saying is, the byproduct of acting in destructive ways is that there's death, there's pain, there's stuff that comes with that when we engage it. It's just a byproduct. And so I had to begin to be okay with other people's consequences. It didn't mean I come out punishing. It meant I was
Right.
like, hey, I'm going to drop this here, and you might spiral into shame. I'm not going to manage your shame. I'm not going to manage your pain. I just gave you a gift that if you choose to face your shame, you can get out of the shame that's been condemning you all this time anyways.
Yep.
So I'm going to share this, and maybe it leads to love for you, or maybe it leads to you deciding to go further down your rabbit hole of shame. I can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
The other element inside it is
Justin, can I stop you for a second?
yeah, stop me.
Sorry. I wanted to know the word that you used. You said it's about self nurture.
Yeah,
Is that it? Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I'm putting the puzzle pieces together as you're talking. So go ahead. Sorry.
Totally. No, you're great. I could have easily lost it. So I'm building kind of there. So there was also the element of me saying to my dad, or accepting my parents may never be what I need. And that, like, I remember a friend challenged me and said, Justin, your dad may never be the dad that you're hoping for. Can you accept that? And I remember that day I got off the phone. I started dropping F-bombs left and right in this garage, and I was screaming and yelling, and I was punching a wall. And I was like, I may never have the dad I want. And I was letting grief freshly come to the surface.
Yeah.
And I was going, that might never happen. And I'm not here to try and twist his arm and get him to change. I'm here to have a voice. And now here is where the element of the self-nurture comes in all of it. It was me accepting these people cannot fix me. Yeah. These people may never be able to be what I want. Even if these people fully 1000% understand what they've done wrong and they say, I'm sorry, and they validate every bit of it, there is a debt that is inside of me that they can't pay. And I am going to have to partner with a higher love that has the capacity to pay that debt off. So I am going to have to begin to reflect a nurturing nature. That means I am going to have to begin a process with Justin where I see his condition through a compassionate lens. And I begin to acknowledge, like, if no one else acknowledges it, Justin, I see you. I see your pain. I see your loss. I see how this affected you. I see how alone you felt. I care about you. I love you. Your pain matters to me. Your story matters to me. And I began to reflect that nurturing nature in the way that I would listen to myself, in the way that I'd allow myself to cry. I made a promise to myself when I was a kid, I will never cry again. After, at one point when my mom was hurting me so bad, I said, I'll never give you my tears. And I shut it off. And I remember part of the self-nurture process is I will love you so much and be so safe for you, Justin. I will be available to every tear that you need to cry, every pain, every place where you need to weep. I will be available to it. And that's where I knew, like, that is where we take our power back in the healing process. Is it's not in someone else's hands to do it. It's not contingent upon whether or not they reconcile with us. It's contingent upon whether or not we choose to engage the nurturing nature of love, of God, and reflect it to ourselves. And so that's the place where the healing really, really began to happen, is in that empowerment in that space. And then I could freely share with people how they've affected me, regardless of whether or not they respond well. And how do you know when to do it? You don't. And everything is by the movement of my heart, and not just connecting to our logic, but connecting to our heart space. Like, what is screaming inside of me? And you can hear this thing that says, I need to be heard on this. Yeah. Okay, that's enough. That's enough. There's a little boy who got neglected for so long. If he's saying, I need to say this, I'm going to go stand up for him, because now I'm a powerful adult who is making this statement, advocating for him, where he never got advocated for by saying, hey, this happened. This is real. And now something settles inside of my being and if, let's say, like you said, parents die, they've disowned you. They're not even close to you. Well, that's where the relationships come into place, because that's where I dug in vulnerably and said, okay, if I can't have a voice over there because they're dead, gone, don't care, I'm going to do it here in this space with people who love me. This is how bad it ached. This is what my neglect felt like. And you don't have to have physical, verbal, emotional abuse. You can have a moments where it's just like, my parents were so busy, I never got seen. In fact, that's one of the most painful abuses, is neglect. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, but nobody put cigarettes out on my arm. It wasn't that kind of home where someone was drinking and being crazy. It didn't have to be. But when I give voice to that part of myself, acknowledge to myself, that hurt, that was bad, that's voice enough. Just me saying it out loud, that didn't feel good. That was sad that my dad was just super busy, and there were 12 kids, and I got lost in the midst of 12 of us and never really got much attention. That hurt. That way of having a voice even starts healing something.
Yeah, so powerful, Justin. I'm remembering, actually, I read a book because you brought it up, I believe, in your podcast with Chris Cook, and it was about it's the complex PTSD book. Forgetting the. Do you know who I'm talking about? I mean, there's so many
Pete
out
Walker,
there.
Complex PTSD. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was like a really thick book.
No, you're talking about Pete Walker's book.
Yeah, Pete Walker's book. That's who it is.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, Complex
that book.
PTSD by Pete Walker.
I started reading that book after you mentioned that, and started diving into I'm forgetting the term right now, but it was the emotional neglect, and how you're saying that, like, here we think, oh no, well, the physical and the abusive, that's much worse. And no, when I started peeling that back, that book is very intense. I had to go slow with it. I still haven't finished it. But that was a huge piece for me. And it was owning that, that there was some of that in my childhood, a lot of it, during a certain period of time. And that I had to give myself compassion as being a young girl. And I like what you said, like, you were really you didn't say this, but I feel like you were being true to you, and you were saying, this might cause them pain, might cause my parents pain, it might cause them shame, but at the same time, like, I can't own that for them, and I can't manage that for them. I can't take responsibility for them. And I'm sure you did it in love, but I'm sure like you said, there were times of like fights and rage and things like that you were walking through as well. But you know what? You were being true to you, and you were like, you had to. That's how you chose to walk out your process. And that's so powerful. I just wanted to like reiterate that again, because I think oftentimes we're scared of hurting feelings, right? Or I'll bring it up again. Like, I think religion gets in the way and over spiritualizing, like, oh, I'm not being loved. I'm not being like Jesus if I do this and then I hurt or offend this person. It's like, no, like you can do it in love, but you can also be real and true to yourself.
I think that also inside of it, I always wanted to be the good Christian kid who didn't hurt anyone's feelings. I thought that was good Christianity, like you said. And it's not like a great love. When love is present, it confronts a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It naturally does. There was when Jesus came, he started having conversations that pissed people off real bad. They got really angry, so angry they hung him on a cross.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't like what you have to say. We don't like how it's confronting the realities of our culture, the realities of how we are doing things. We're not getting our way anymore. You're calling us on the carpet for things. Yeah. He wasn't out to punish. He wasn't out to condemn, but he was in many ways holding people accountable to a higher truth. Yeah. And I think that also in the process, we have to give ourselves a grace of like, I might get messy, and there might be mess that I then have to clean up and be like, dude, I'm really sorry. I lost it. I went bananas on you. And that came out in a way that didn't actually articulate the reality of my pain. And I didn't know how to get my words for that. Please forgive me. The truth is I am sad. I am hurt. And the more that we can get connected to the true vulnerable emotions like sadness, we can say, I think that part of the grief and healing process will be acknowledging injustice. And with it comes righteous anger at times. And sometimes that veers into unrighteous anger where we lose it. And that just happens. And we can't be perfect. We just go, okay, that's part of our messiness, but I want to learn better. I want to do better. I want to fail forward. I want to grow in learning how to do this thing so that it ultimately brings the opportunity for unification or unity or restoration. And I will say this, in the journey of confrontation or boundaries or anything else we do, it's about an invitation ultimately for relationship. It's about an invitation for the possibility of restoration. And people may not choose into that, but it's like, hey, I'm actually here not to punish. I'm here knowing that if I don't say this and do this, there's no possibility for me to get past the hurdle or the wall. Here's the invitation. I want to dialogue about the reality of this. I want to get to have a voice on this. And so if we can keep in context that we're actually wanting to be able to rebuild bridges rather than burn them to the ground,
Yeah.
that's going to make this more inviting for us and for the people on the other side of us. And the other component to this is in the healing process, there will be all the mess, and it's the goal isn't to vilify others. I mean, it's to be honest about how we're experiencing our journey with others, but it's not to make a villain out of them. And
Yeah.
when we have properly validated and attuned to our own situation and gotten love in, we get to the beautiful component, which is genuine forgiveness. And genuine forgiveness is, we know it's been made manifest when we can have compassion on someone else's condition. Oftentimes we try to jump over the whole grief process, the pain process, and just go, forgiven. You're good. It's all good. We're great. Yeah. Nothing bad happened here. Right. Oh, geez. I forgive you, and I see what you've been through. That's not even real. So once we get through, we secretly have bitterness and resentment that builds in the underlying hidden places that are compartmentalized. And so in this process of getting honest and real, then we can get to a place of like, oh my gosh, I see the child within them. So shattered by their human experience. I see this scared little kid who's fighting to survive in this moment, scared of rejection, scared of not being loved, scared of loss, scared of being dominated. I can see their heart. I can see how they got there, and I can forgive them. Even if they don't get this, I may need to draw some boundaries because they're still acting out of their mind, kicking and screaming, but I see their condition, and I can see the Father's heart of love for them now. And in that, both people are each getting this win-win. Both people are getting to coexist, have value, matter inside of it.
Yeah. Wow. Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Justin, because you're in that process. I'm hearing, you're being true to yourself. And you're working out the steps, like the steps of grief or the stages of grief. But ultimately, when you come to that stage of like acceptance, I would even say you are in a place where, compassion can be there, love can be there, forgiveness is there, but you've owned your own process and you've walked through it. And I that's so powerful. I know for me, like I would say most of my life, I fought against wanting to be the victim. So I was like, I won't take up victim mentality.
Yeah.
But in that, because I was like, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to survive. And I lived in a place of survival for a long time. And in that, me fighting victimhood and victim mentality, I wasn't being true to my pain though. And that is something that has been newer to me, even through my marriage process, like I shared with you, owning it and my husband stepping into that place and saying, it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel this. You're not being a victim. You're being true to you, and you're giving yourself, like, I love that word, self-nurture. You're giving yourself compassion in that place. And it's so powerful. Like, I feel like I was really good at allowing God to do that part with me.
Yeah.
But there's something really powerful when we do that part with ourselves.
Yeah.
And
I want to add to that real quick, to the fear of victim mentality. Victim mentality really is, especially people will talk about their pain and you'll be like, oh, they sound like they're in self-pity. Self-pity and victim mentality is a manifestation of acknowledging pain, but believing there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, that's so good.
And so how do I say this? There's something really healthy when I can acknowledge my pain and then also say, but there also exists a solution. That's where we get out of self-pity and we get into compassion. Compassion is really the acknowledgement of pain with the understanding that I have powerful choices that I can make to heal.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's what I was going to say.
Or someone else.
yeah, like being a powerful person and in a sense being in control, right? Being in control of our choices.
Yeah.
I use that word control lightly, but I think when we are in victimhood, we feel powerless. You know, we feel out of control, like you're saying,
Yeah.
like there's no hope. But yeah, when you're nurturing yourself and you're owning it, you're like, no, but there is hope here, there is good here, there is something on the other side of this.
And there
So
there is something to, like, you look at someone like Nelson Mandela, which I can't go into the fullness of his story, but here he is in
yeah.
Africa in jail, and his process is everything outside of him is
Hmm.
controlled.
Hmm.
He can't get out. And so this lie that most people believe is that they need to change something outside of themselves in order to reconcile. But what he understood is that he got to manage self. He got to decide how to heal and how to process through that, what he was going to believe. He got to process through bitterness and resentment. And then he got to come out and be a great leader
Hmm.
on the
Yeah.
other side of it, because he learned how to be powerful within. And that's the thing, is that slavery free, rich or poor. When it's Paul, right? That's saying that.
Mhm.
I've learned how to be content, slave or free, rich or poor. I'm butchering the scripture, but he's talking about the idea of internal empowerment. There is a connection ultimately with his creator, with God, with truth, with love, that no matter what the circumstance outside of himself, he is now connected fully to kingdom and identity. And that's something that
Yeah.
no one can give me nor take away from me, which is my identity. That is
Yeah.
something that I get to decide to choose what my identity is and what the source of it is. And
Mhm.
if I keep my identity, or the source of my identity, in the hands of people, I will always feel like a victim to their actions, reactions, their judgments, their prejudices. But when I take my identity out of their hands, say, you will not get to dictate whether or not I am good or bad, worthy, lovable. I am the one who gets to
Mhm.
dictate that. And I am going to reflect what the creator says about me. I am
Mhm.
unconditionally loved. I am chosen. I am more than enough. I am a
Mhm.
king's kid, made beautifully and wonderfully. And we begin to own that and begin to take that back. Again, that's where the power happens. That's where we can grieve well. That's where we can heal well. And then everyone else becomes a gift rather than a source. So
Yeah.
my wife, I don't need my wife to be the one that validates me, but my gosh, she is such a beautiful, radical gift, a
Yeah.
reflection of heaven that gets to enter into moments when she has the capacity to love me in a certain space.
Mhm.
And then that can fill me, that can fill a part of me or touch a part of me, but it is not my
Mhm.
source. It's like people
Wow.
become all these streams that are kind of pouring into this main river, but the source of this river is this unconditional love, unconditionally loving creator.
Yeah.
And so again, once we tap into that,
Yeah.
everything else becomes a gift. And then I don't have to control. I don't have to manipulate people. I don't have to demand that they see life through my lens. I don't even have to demand that they see me or understand me completely, because I
Yeah.
see and understand, because there's a creator that sees and understands.
Mhm. That's so powerful, Justin, because I know even in my own process, like there, I've wanted to, and to be transparent, like even in walking through the first year of marriage, and I feel that this is a process. Like I wanted to like make sure that Chris was like understanding me. You know what I mean? Like you understand this, right? Or
You
like
get this, right?
feeling,
Right?
yeah, you're getting this, and like or we were going to come to like an agreement in a mutual understanding, and that's control. It's like
Total
I
control.
had to have that, and there are times that I still go through that, right? But I love what you said, like it's a gift if they can be in that space and they can be present in that and be with you, and there is that understanding and that love and all of that. But ultimately it's the source of God that we gain that ultimate fulfillment from. And if they can gift us with that, great. And if not, we don't have to step into control and manipulation. And
Absolutely.
that's so beautiful. Thank you for bringing
Yeah.
that up. I love
Totally.
that.
Totally.
So everyone, we are going to do live Q&A. So go ahead and start putting in your questions. Justin, I'm going to ask you one more question before we jump into that. But you guys can just start putting in your questions, whatever, wherever you're at, like whether you're on my page or Take Courage or whatever. Chris will go ahead and put those in. And we will do Q&A. But before we do that, Justin, I want to ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
I know, you mentioned like as a boy, you obviously shut off that one part because of abuse and so forth. And you're like, yeah, I'm not going to give you the power to even see me cry or whatever. And I think, I know this is a big topic, like for men, it's difficult to go past all those stereotypes and those things that you've been told, maybe words that have been spoken over you, in a sense about emotion and whatnot. And this goes for men and women, but I want to just kind of ask you if you could briefly talk about what does it look like for a man or a woman to really learn how to connect to their heart and connect to their emotions.
Yeah.
Is my question clear?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will speak quickly to the gender conversation just really quick. There is a predominant thing with regards to masculinity where we've been sold the lie that we are sexual creatures and we are not emotional creatures. That is the greatest lie on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And because of it, it's led to so much anger, hatred, dominance, destruction, dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't know any different. And so we have to be given permission that like, oh, this isn't bad about you. You're not broken in this. You are actually made for relationship. You're dissatisfied in life because you've been sold the lie that you can't connect to emotion. So that's a side note. You asked, how do I connect to my emotions and my heart better? One of the things that I had to take into consideration and acknowledge is that our life is being driven by protocols. That is our programming up here, the rules of life. Well, my family rule system says you don't talk about this. You don't ask these questions. You don't feel these things. You just don't. There's a lot of these just don't conversations, and each culture differs based on religion, based on background, race, country of origin, family of origin, whatever. And once we first acknowledge, hey, my whole life is being driven by a rule system, then we can begin the process of identifying the rules. What are our family rules? What is my system's rules about emotions, our core beliefs about emotions? Because where you have a belief, you will not allow yourself to go certain places, or you will go a certain place. And so when I had a rule that says, I will not allow myself to feel because that only leads to more pain, then I had to acknowledge like, oh, there's a rule I have here that says I can't do this and that it's only going to hurt more. And so I have to break the lie. That's a truth to me, but it's a lie in the scheme of actual truth. And so, one, acknowledging the rules. Two, giving yourself permission. I give myself permission to get honest. We learn at a young age to be compliant. Like our goal is compliancy. And I had to give myself permission to not be compliant, not only to rules, but also the culture in front of me, whether that was religion or the people that I was in connection with. I had to give myself permission to not be compliant. Now from that stage, I started asking myself questions like, if there was no rule here about this, if you could not be punished, if no one would reject you, what would you have to say about this? What do you actually feel or believe to be true about this? One of the other components was I started to apologize to myself. Justin, I am sorry for all the places that I shut you down. I told you that you were stupid for feeling this way. I told you that no one would love you if you said these things or acknowledged these realities. So we've so backed ourselves into a corner with the possibility of punishment and self-abuse that this part of our being goes, I don't want to offer that up. I don't want to hear one more time that I'm an idiot. I don't want to hear one more time that people aren't going to like me if I share that, or that people are going to walk away from me. So I just won't share it. But the more that I become kind, compassionate, and gentle, and I give these permissions, something starts bubbling up inside. And I started just watching myself in moments like, I'll share an easy one. Well, as in this process, I've always owned a truck. And that means that you are Mr. U-Haul for everyone.
Yeah.
Mid-sized truck can haul a 5-bedroom family home, apparently, because that's what everyone thinks, especially when you live in Los Angeles, California. And I'd have these moments where I could feel this tug of war inside of me. Someone would be like, can I borrow your truck? And this thing inside of me screams, no, they never take care of my truck. It comes back with dents and scratches. They don't put gas back in it. I just don't want miles put on it. I don't want them to use it. I'll help them in other ways. And then I would see myself immediately be like, you don't want to hurt their feelings, and you need to be a good Christian, though. The war and the arguments are always happening. And when we get more self-aware, we begin to see, oh, there's war and there's arguments going on. What are they? Oh, I can see my authentic voice over here doesn't want to. My rule tells me I have to. And right there at that crossroads, when we can start recognizing that, we can start recognizing it in a million ways. And so in those moments when I would see that and feel that tug of war, let me back up. I started giving myself permission to not have to have an answer. I started there.
Wow.
Because immediately we feel like there's a demand to be compliant and a demand to have an answer with people. And when I gave myself permission not to have one right away, people would ask me questions and I'd be like, I gave permission for the awkwardness. And I'd be like, give me a second. I have to think about this.
Yeah.
And I'd hear the tug of war. And then all of a sudden I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. Well, why? Well, let me start with no is enough of an answer.
Yeah. Wow.
Progressively, as I got to hear my heart and got more connected to it and knew that I could have win-win scenarios, I could go through all the list of things internally and be like, oh, I can on these conditions. If you put a dent in it, you'll pay for the body work. It needs to come back on a full tank. And on top of that, I want you to run it through a car wash for me just as an extra gift for using it. And that's what you can do to pay me.
Yeah.
I don't have the money to, I don't want to do that. Cool. I don't want you using my truck. It was simple things and moving on those simple moments that the more I validated or acknowledged my pain that I could feel or gave myself permission to not be compliant, that it naturally came up.
Wow, that's so powerful. I love that because, I feel like we learn that, like you said, as children, to be compliant and to always have an answer. That's really, really good because I know I've dealt with that. And I noticed that about you actually in one of the questions that that I asked you, and you said, you know what, let me just verbally process this right now. And I thought that's a powerful moment. That's a powerful person that can not have all the answers in that moment and just verbally walk through that in front of an audience. Like, that's incredible. And I'm going to be processing that because I think I could really grow in that. So thank you for that.
You're welcome, Diane.
Really powerful. So there are some questions, and first off, thank you so much. This was incredible. I know we could talk forever. I could keep you forever. So thank you. I appreciate it, and I encourage everyone watching, to go back and even. I mean, if you want to even take notes, because I'm a practical person and even share this with other people, like in the sense of, like one of the things I thought of that I'm going to do is just kind of sit with God, sit with self. And when you mention like, what are some of those rules, and just kind of even write those things out, like what are some rules that I've had or rules that I've learned like from my family line. And
kind of don'ts. That's an easy way to do it. What are the don'ts that we do in our family? You do not.
Yes.
What is that? And that's a great way to start seeing the rules.
Yeah.
Oh, you would not get away with that. You do not do that in our family.
Right. That's super powerful, just to walk through that. So I just encourage you guys to go back and listen to this and even share this. This has just been such a powerful conversation. And